Back in 1953, for the 300th anniversary of the founding of New York City, then New Amsterdam, on February 2nd, 1653, the city of New York mounted a large year-long celebration, and with an official 300th anniversary committee chaired by both the governor and the mayor. There were major celebrations organized. The New York Times printed a special tribute in its Sunday edition at the beginning of February 1953. An official 300th anniversary medallion was issued by the city, and the United States government printed a special first-class postage stamp in honor of February 2nd, 1653, and the Dutch founding of the city. It's pictured right here. Since 1953, the city has largely ignored its own birthday. Very few New Yorkers even know about February 2nd, 1653. This year, on February 2nd, 2016, in cooperation with the Dutch Consulate in New York and the New York City Council, the Lower Manhattan Historical Society and the Bowling Green Association have begun a new tradition, and we will celebrate the birth of New York City every February 2nd from now on, which we hope will become ever more prominent with each new year. Here is this first effort.
Mr. Ross?
Those are Dutch tourists.
You can still
I just want to say thank you to our Consul General, Rob DeVos, and the entire team, and everybody here who cares about the very, very substantial and long-term relationship between the Dutch and New York. And my name is Jimmy Van Bramer. I am very, very proud to be the Majority Leader of the New York City Council, and very, very proud that my immigrant ancestors came to this country over 350 years ago and settled here in New Amsterdam. So it is a wonderful joy to be able to participate in this, to be a descendant of the original settlers of New Netherlands. And while I am many things, I am very, very proud of my Dutch heritage, and so very, very thrilled to be a part of this event with all of you here today. New York would not be New York without the Dutch. And that was true in the 1600s, and it's true today. So it's great to be here representing the New York City Council as the only Dutch American in the New York City Council.
Thank you very much, Arthur, and thank you very much, Jimmy van Bremen, to be here with us. Our relationship goes back some time, because we are proud to have a Dutchman on the City Council, a City Council which started 2nd of February 1653 at this point. And for some of us who know all about history, they know that that place, of course, was the fort of Amsterdam, which the settlers needed here. So we go back a long, long time. But what I found very important today is that this is also a tribute for those of the politicians who work for local democracy. And we have seen yesterday how thriving democracy is in your country. But it's not only about national politics, of course, although you may think that with the media at the moment in the United States it's also about national politics. No, it's also about local politicians. Because what the Dutch brought to the United States was also a decentralized model of governing. And we need able and passionate local politicians. And that's why I'm glad you are here, Jimmy, and that's why I thought this morning when I woke up, this is going to be an historical day. An historical day, ladies and gentlemen. And let's make every year, on the 2nd of February, every year, an historical day.
Yes, yes, yes.
Pronounce it as the evacuation.
This is the flag that was first flown on November 25th, 1783. Not this exact flag, but this flag, the 13-star flag, was first flown Thank you all for joining us. Those of us with the Bowling Green Association and the Lower Manhattan Historical Society, my name is Arthur Piccolo. It all began today, February 2nd, 1653, right here at Bowling Green, the birth of a great city, New Amsterdam. This was the day. A lot of important history has taken place in New York City, but from the perspective of the city, February 2nd, 1653 is truly the birthday of New York City. It is the day inside the fort, now the Alexander Hamilton Custom House, where a charter of self-government was granted to the citizens of New Amsterdam. All right. New York City, then New Amsterdam, became a city on that day. Before it was just a part of the colony. The majority leaders should appreciate this, and we all should. The city council that exists today dates from that very day. What began with the creation of a council on February 2nd, 1653, is a continuous link from that to today to the council. So this is also, in effect, the birthday of the New York City Council. So on behalf of the Bowling Green Association and the Lower Manhattan Historical Society, special thanks, of course, to Dutch Consul General Rob de Vos, most of all, to New York City Council Majority Leader Jimmy Van Bremer, to the Cipriani Organization, absolutely, to the Veteran Corps of Artillery State of New York, to the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, to the New York City Police Department 1st Precinct, and a very special thanks to Tessa Dicker, Policy Officer, Press and Cultural Affairs of the Consulate of the Netherlands in New York. It was her work that more than anything else made today possible, and I want to personally thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to introduce James Kaplan, the President of the Lower Manhattan Historical Society.
The Lower Manhattan Historical Society is a new organization. What I think people don't recognize is the Dutch also were instrumental in founding democracy here in New York. Perhaps today, but also during the Revolution. Theodore Roosevelt, in his book, Gouverneur Morris, points out that when the Patriots were in control of New York, the Dutch churches flourished. And when the British took over, it was the Episcopal Church and the Dutch churches closed because many of the Dutch went up to fight in the Revolution against the British, fighting at Saratoga and other places. And right out here will soon be known as Evacuation Day Plaza, because it was when the Americans came back on Evacuation Day, November 25th, 1783, they raised the flag, and it was a young Dutch soldier who'd been in the prison ships named John Van Arsdale, who raised the flag, and when that flag raised, that was the start of democracy here in New York City, here in this country, and ultimately it would be the worldwide. So this is a very important place. And I think the Dutch are very intimately related to it. It was later Martin Van Buren, who was of Dutch descent, who would institute in the New York State Constitution, eliminate property qualifications for voting, which meant that people rather than property voted. So they've been intimately involved with the rise of democracy, and I think we honor that today, and our organization will try to make that known as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to introduce, for a few short comments, one of the very important leaders here in Lower Manhattan, the chair of Community Board Number 1, Catherine McVeigh Hughes.
As you all know, Lower Manhattan is very rich in history, and it's important to celebrate New York City's roots, including today's founding of the city as New Amsterdam and the Charter of Self-Government. It is a great day today that the Dutch Consulate General of New York, Rob de Vos, and the representation from the New York City Council is here to lead today's celebration, to remind New Yorkers and everyone how and when New York City began its journey to greatness in what many call the capital of the world, here in Manhattan Community Board 1. Just to remind you, we still continue to learn from the Dutch, and we're counting on you to help us in this resiliency process, which is only finally beginning here in Lower Manhattan.
I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Alan Millman, the Public Affairs Officer of the Veteran Corps of Artillery, State of New York, for a few words.
Consul General, Ambassador DeVoe, Madam DeVoe, New York City Council Majority Leader, Jimmy Bramer, and all gathered here today. The Veteran Corps of Artillery, State of New York, is proud to be involved in today's ceremony and in the celebration of the founding of New York City Council in 1653. As the longest serving military unit in the state of New York, we are happy to assist in the raising of the Dutch and the colonial flag today, and we look forward to, as Ambassador DeVos said, having many, many ceremonies like this in the future.
Finally, representing Lower Manhattan, another one of our dynamic young leaders, Captain Jonathan Boulware, who is president of the South Street Seaport Museum. Jonathan?
Well, good afternoon. It's a privilege to be here today, and I think a lot of the things that I might have said about why this day is significant have already been said. I have the privilege of leading the South Street Seaport Museum, which we use pretty regularly the phrase, where New York begins, which represents really the port itself. But certainly, the original Dutch colony, which had its northern wall at Wall Street, now the financial capital of the world, was truly where New York began. South Street's where it went global, but this is where it began. And I think it's worth noting, too, as the flag finally went up today, and there was a small but rowdy contingent of clearly Dutch who began what I think was the Dutch national anthem just now. And I want to point out, Peter Stuyvesant was mentioned earlier, and he was fairly uncomfortable with what was a very rowdy colony up until about 1640. A very rowdy Dutch colony below Wall Street. And one of the indications of that was 1 out of every 4 structures in the Dutch colony was either dedicated to or had as a partial purpose the selling of alcohol. So you can imagine what that was like. I'm very heartened today to see this gathering, to see such strong representation on the part of our international colleagues, on the part of our city government, in the focus of what is a common effort. Down here, this is a very important place, and of course we're doing the best that we can in the South Street Seaport area to preserve something that is equally important to the fabric of New York, the greatest city in the world. And I'm very, very heartened that these many people have turned out today in support of this great effort.
To introduce the majority leader of the New York City Council, the Honorable Jimmy Van Bremer. I hope he appreciates, and I hope the entire council appreciates, that this is the day of your birthday. And I hope you'll go back and tell all your colleagues that they should join us next year on this important day so we can make this even a bigger and a more festive celebration. Majority leader.
Thank you. Thank you once again, all of you, for being here and celebrating this historic day, but also this historic relationship. I am very, very thrilled to be the majority leader of the City Council, and I just want to say that this City Council, the 51-member body that I'm proud to serve in, is the most diverse City Council that has ever existed. I, the majority leader, am an openly gay man, married to my husband, living in Queens. We have 27 Black, Latino, and Asian members of the New York City Council. And that may not have been exactly what Peter Stuyvesant had in mind. But I want to say that what the Dutch created has continued to grow and become, I believe, an incredibly representative, very, very positive force for democracy in New York City and the world. So I just want to say, on behalf of the New York City Council and our speaker, Melissa Mark Viverito, we are very, very proud to be a part of this. Needless to say, as someone who is very proud of the fact that I descend from Jan Dirksen van Bremen, who arrived in New Netherlands, it is an enormous honor to be a part of this, but this is a tremendous opportunity to celebrate the birth of the body that I serve in, and I am enormously proud of that. And I just want to say, on behalf of Jan Dirksen van Bremen, who came to this country a very long time, I'm really proud of the very, very rich understanding of the power of immigration into this country, which is why I continue to support an incredibly progressive immigration policy, because I wouldn't be here if he wasn't able to come here. And today there are folks coming from many other countries. Say once again, thank you for allowing us to celebrate the New York City Council and the important contributions of the Dutch in New York City today. Thank you all very much.
The final and most important speaker, you know, the Council General, I heard him say this publicly, so I don't think I'm telling you anything that he wouldn't want you to know. This is his final posting in his diplomatic career, if I think, as he explained it. It could not be a better posting than to be here in New York City and to be the Council General who began this new tradition that every February 2nd we will gather in Lower Manhattan and raise the Dutch flag and honor the founding of this city on February 2nd, 1653. And I hope you'll be here for many years as Council General, and I hope even after that you will return here every February 2nd as the individual responsible for us being here. It's my great pleasure to introduce Council General Rob DeVos.
I want to pick out two things. And one, I have to read, and I know, of course, I'm here amongst historians, and I'm just an amateur historian, and the amateur historians are very active in the city also, as you will know, and discuss all kinds of dates. But I would like to share with you, this is a Bible for me, a book about all kinds of documents about New York. And for this period, which we are remembering today, they have chosen a document with the remonstrance of the inhabitants of the town of Flushing. Because sometimes Stuyvesant was not very nice. He was not very nice in the beginning to Jewish people because he didn't like them to come from this city. But he was corrected by Amsterdam. And he also had a problem with Quakers. He didn't want them. And even people who hated Quakers, they could be penalized for that. And that led to a remonstrance of the inhabitants of the town of Flushing, Vlissingen, of course. And I just two passages I want to read for you. To Governor Stuyvesant, December 1657, Right Honourable, you have been pleased to set up into a certain prohibition or command that we should not receive or entertain any of these people called Quakers, because they are supported to be by some seducers of the people. For our part, we cannot condemn them in the case. Neither can we stretch out our hands against them to punish, banish, or persecute them. For out of Christ of God is consuming fire. And it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. And the text goes on, and what struck me last night when I was reading it, that they go further than ask the Quakers to stay. They also say the law of love, peace and liberty in the states extending to Jews, Turks, Egyptians, as they are considered the sons of Adam. Striking for me in a time that religion is very often being misused and led to fear, to hatred, and to death. These people have set an example, and that's why for us history is so important. And that's why this day is not only about raising flags. Let's talk every year about the New York values. We Dutch people are proud that we have helped New York to start with the base of New York values. New York can be proud of their values. And let's hope that in this case New York will not stay an island in the center of the world, but that this island will spread its values to the world and to the United States of America. Now it gives me great pride to introduce to you our consultant, our advisor, a man who has been working for a long time with young people in this city as a teacher, wrote his PhD with the New York University, gave a lecture to our Prime Minister and to Jimmy on the history of New Amsterdam and New Netherlands. Dennis White.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. So as a historian, I've been researching and writing about early New York for many years, and every time I come down to Lower Manhattan, I try to imagine it in the 17th century. And I usually use the Costello plan that you can take a look at over there as my frame of reference to picture the early city. If you take a look at it, you notice that the tip of Manhattan is off to the left. The Hudson River, the North River, is on the top. And you can see the outlines of the streets and the canals, the fort. You can see the houses and the gardens. It's a marvelous image. You can take a look at the original one. This is a copy from the late 19th century, I believe. The original one, you can check it online, Costello plan. It's a wonderful thing to use as you walk around the city, especially around this part. Sadly, the only remainders that are here are the street outlines that you can still see. So I think maybe we need an app, for Lower Manhattan. Maybe that could be another project. Could be involved. But anyway, today's celebration forces me to try something a little different. The Costello plan was actually created in 1660 and reflected the tremendous growth of the small city from the previous few years in 1653, a growth spurt that actually doubled the number of buildings and houses below the wall, and essentially also doubled the city's population. Since the Costello plan would have been kind of a false guide for today, I tried to imagine the place in a different way, and I ask you that you join me in this exercise. Rather than picturing what Manhattan physically looked like on February 2nd, 1653, before that growth spurt, I'd like to imagine what the locals were thinking when their municipality's first officers, 2 burgomasters and 5 scapegoats, took their oaths of office not far from where we are now and proclaimed the existence of the city of New Amsterdam, an incorporated city that was in the European style, unique to early America, and was actually the envy of its English neighbors. I'm sure those people expected their actions that day to contribute to the city's short-term growth, which is the reason why they asked for it. But they could not have anticipated that their first attempt at municipal government would lay the foundations for one of the world's great modern cities. So what were the people of New Amsterdam thinking that day 363 years ago? What was there about a city charter that was so valuable to those who live here? Put government in the hands of those with a strong interest in the country's benefit, men who would be, quote, moral, honorable, and intelligent, and who would guarantee the community's well-being and future prosperity. In their words, what they sought was a suitable municipal government. The word they used was burgerlijk, the kind that existed in Holland. For 17th century Dutch, a burgerlijk government provided security, stability, and order. So I think this short introductory glimpse might give us some idea of the civic values held by the citizens of New Amsterdam on February 2nd, 1653. So let me review and itemize. First, that they chose to model themselves after Europe's leading commercial city shows not only that they had high expectations for their future, but they are optimistic about their potential for success. Second, they clearly looked to local government to provide order, stability, and security in perilous times. They were not opposed to larger government, they simply understood its limitations. Third, they believed that residents needed to make a conscious commitment to their community, and that formal community membership, the Burgerrecht, city citizenship, came with both responsibilities and privileges. Fourth, they wanted their leaders to be people of higher intelligence and moral purpose, and to have a vested interest in the community they serve. And fifth, that the wealthy were expected to contribute to the community based on their ability to pay. So on this day, when we commemorate the incorporation of the city of New Amsterdam, it's worth remembering some of the values that lay at the foundation of modern-day New York City. I think both today's Republicans and Democrats would agree it's hard to find fault with 17th century New York values. Indeed, perhaps they could offer us all some inspiration and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Micah. Before we cut the cake, I just want to mention again this beautiful place that we've been given the opportunity to use today, Cipriani Broadway. I want to especially thank my very good friend, Randy Janis, and also Cheryl Bracco, who manages this particular facility. This is a great place for events. Hopefully many of you go back and recommend it. This is part of a two-part celebration. We will gather again on probably on March 11th, because the first As far as I'm concerned, the first truly important act of this new city government that was created on February 2nd, 1653, was their decision on March 13th of 1653 to create a wall that became the most famous street in the world. And we will gather on Wall Street probably on Friday, March the 11th, more information to come, with a public ceremony on the steps of Federal Hall, and then once again, through the generosity of Cipriani, in that case, we will gather at 55 Wall Street. So please look for more information about our celebration of the birth of Wall Street in March. We're going to cut the tray. We call it a birthday cake. This is a birthday. We call it other things too, but it's certainly a birthday. And if everyone will gather around, the Council General and the majority leader will cut this cake.
Happy birthday, dear Senor. Happy birthday to you. Thank you, Ken.
Gentlemen, if you'll cut the cake.
Should we take a photo?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, we'll hold it. You have the knife?
All right. Dramatic pause. Dramatic pause, right? So we'll just.
You're supposed to organize it.
Yay.
Come on. Yay. Don't be shy.
That's very thick.
Is it?
Yes, very rich. Are we really going to cut everyone a piece?
No, we'll take care of that. All right.
Blue one.
Here goes.
All right. Thank you.
You never know.